Hey, Jay here. We're back here with this Honda Talon, which has been a really fun build that we've been doing off and on. It's my buddy Donnie's. I enjoy driving the thing, but Donnie's going through a bit of a midlife crisis since he's not riding moto like he used to. He's got a bad knee right now, so he's hoping to get back to moto. But until then, he's just been, kind of absorbed in this thing. And this thing's been a really fun deal. First, we just shot the UTV Action magazine story, which we'll show you right here. It was a really fun day shooting out with those guys at El Mirage. We were out the dry lake beds and up into the desert, and they got to feel this thing and try it out with the upgrades we had done, and they really liked it. And then after that, kind of semi last minute for a desert race, Donnie decides he wants to do this Tinzer Parker 250, best in the desert, full on race, January 10th, 11th, 2020. He wants to do this race. And maybe it was only like a month or a month and a half out. He's scrambling to get this thing all ready. And we learned a bunch of things that we wanted to upgrade and change to make this thing more race ready. Spoiler alert, it did survive the race. We'll tell you that. And he finished really well for being his first, off-road desert race. It's a really cool race and the footage is really cool. When you see this footage of this race, pretty neat stuff that they did. So this thing survived and held up really well. And so we're going to talk about some of the upgrades we did to make this thing race ready. It was the most popular, one of the most popular vehicles in the pits. These Hondas, everybody's got their attention because most people have grown up with Honda dirt bike ATV reliability, and Honda's been late to the show in this deal, but a lot of people like Honda's reliability. This thing hasn't broken any axles, that kind of stuff. So we're going to give you an inside look at everything we did and everything we're going to look to upgrade for the next race. So one of the things I noticed, and of course Donnie did driving it way more than I did, the first time I drove this car, I think I noticed when you're turning, it was it was a pain to try to shift with your hands turning. So you had to wait till you were back straight to turn. You could also risk getting your hands all tangled up. So having a custom steering wheel like this from Raceco, this is from Jamie Campbell, which is Johnny Campbell's brother. Obviously grew up riding dirt bikes, and now he's got a custom shop that he builds a lot of parts, and he made this custom steering wheel, which is rad because you have buttons to upshift, downshift. The pit button is to push and talk to your crew, and the other one is a horn, which is very useful in racing. One of the things that Best in the Desert requires for safety issues is a radio for communication. Rugged Radio makes a really awesome setup which is designed specifically for this Honda Talon unit. There was a bit of cutting to put it in, but it was pretty straightforward. Most good mechanics could easily do this. So we upgraded the seats at the same time because originally we thought the stock seats were plenty sufficient, which they are for just regular recreational use. But if you're getting to a racing situation, you're getting beat up, you want to really stick down into these seats and be more protected from rolling around. And with these harnesses, and then on top of that, Jamie at Raceco makes a really cool base to bolt these things down so everything's really Sano. Rugged Radio also makes a fresh air system which plugs right into the helmet, so you're actually getting fresh air, not just breathing full on nasty dust the whole time. Has a magnetic clip to keep it out of the way right there, nice and Sano in its own place. Okay, so there's a few more items that are definitely required by the Best in the Desert Racing organization to make sure that to help with safety. And one of those is this KC Light blue flashing light to let everybody know that comes up on you and for safety there, obviously. We already mentioned the radio. We got the horns, the hella horns, and they have to be switched to a siren. So got those, first aid kit, reflective triangle. We have all those things that are required that we had to do. Donnie grabbed a Boxco UTV toolkit so that if he broke down, he'd be able to hopefully work on this thing. Got a jack rigged up here and an extra Honda axle that's ready to go. And as you can see, it's mounted up all Sano, so it's not going to just come off under serious rattling conditions. Jamie at Raceco made the mounts to hold this thing in place. Also, you can see we have a spare tire, obviously a must in off-road racing. Didn't need one in this race, which was really nice. So this area on some other UTVs, popular UTVs out there, isn't nearly as beefy and strong. Stock, the Honda one has these two pieces, so it's a lot stronger, but Jamie at Raceco also added this bracket here and then made these radius rods and our tie rods up front much heavier duty and stronger to hold up. We're finding the stock axles so far are holding up for us. Okay, so our suspension for the works racing, if we had Race Tech do it and it felt really good, and then Eibach got us some springs because they wanted to display this unit at the Sand Sports show this fall, and everybody really liked it on there. Now, after racing this desert race, Donnie's learned a few things in that we need to stiffen up the suspension. So we're working with Race Tech, who's going to have some upgraded, stiffer settings for us, and they have some more adjustability coming with some components they're making for inside the shock for each front and rear. And so we're going to rebuild these units. We think these units are plenty good, the stock ones, but we're going to rework them, maybe switch to a stiffer spring, we'll see, but we're going to upgrade that for our next video. We'll have that in there. Eibach also makes this sway bar, and they added this in for added lubrication in this area as well. Honda's made it really easy to get to the battery in this unit. It looks a little small, but so far it's proven to be really just fine for what we need, and even with the upgrades of adding additional electrical items, it hasn't been any issue yet. So we went to start this thing a few days after the race, it didn't want to start, and at the end of the race it was acting a little funny at the very end. And what we got lucky is this ground right here had actually come loose. It was just barely on, and so it was making it really difficult to start. This morning we just pulled this cover off, tightened that up, and solved the issue. So in the future we're going to go around this thing and find things like that that might need Loctite and a little extra care for these really rugged long races. XTC Power Products makes a few of the products that are running on this thing. One of the things we added since the magazine story was this XTC horn that what's cool about it, Donnie mounted it over here for the co-pilot, can actually have his hand right there and he can actually hit the horn so the driver's not having to worry about it as he's paddling away. The products we've had on this thing from the beginning, with IMG making one of the first cages for this thing. Dynajet has been awesome as far as the mapping on this thing. We've had some really good products that have held up. The Baja lights, like I said, other than us not mounting them as well as we could have, that's one issue, but otherwise, we've got some really good components on here that have lasted and are proving to be really strong. As you can see, the A-arms got pretty beat up. So we're gonna look at some stronger ones. Right now, Jamie at Raceco is looking to make upper and lower A-arms for this thing. We're gonna make this thing hopefully a lot stronger with some added protection underneath. So the Method wheels and Tensor tires held up really well with these beadlocks, and the tires look really well for over 200 miles of desert racing. We for sure need that. Also gonna look at adding 32-inch tires for when we race these desert big off-road races to help us get more ground clearance, have a little bit more room there to clear everything. So Donnie's results in this race were really good for a first time. He was like 7th out of 23 in his class, this rally UTV class. And if he hadn't got held up in the last lap and got lapped there he would have had more time to pass the guys. He really felt like he would have been on the 3rd, 4th in this class. So really good for his first time out. He also learned a lot of it is about to finish well, first you must finish. So he saw a lot of carnage of guys just wadding up and kind of going crazy. He had a tough time. A lot of times he was driving into the sun, which is really difficult. And some of this video, this GoPro we have, you can actually see that he's going right into the sun, and makes it really difficult to see what obstacles are out there. And guys would, overguess and roll and crash and all kinds of carnage. So learned that finishing is the first step, and now he's ready for his next one to push a little harder. So in this GoPro footage with this new 7 and 8 cameras with their stabilization, it doesn't look that rough to you, but if you watch the car moving, you can actually see how rough it is. And the trucks ran the course after the UTVs, and Donnie was telling me they came in saying this is one of the roughest courses they'd ever seen. And there's just a lot of different terrain that tests the transmission, it tests everything about the car. When Donnie smashed that A-arm, he didn't even really feel it or know it, and later in the pits, the guys told him, hey, you smashed the front end here. So as you can see, there's just a huge wide range of terrain out there in the desert, and then that's I think what draws people to desert racing. Desert racing, you can cover a lot of ground and you can go high speeds, and it's kind of a neat experience to be able to do that in a vehicle that you feel somewhat safe in, and it fixes that adrenaline fix that most of us have. And so Donnie's really enjoying this off-road racing and this desert racing. He's already planning his next one and making these upgrades so he can get out to his next race. Okay, so that's a good look at this Honda Talon and everything we've done and everything we're gonna do to make this thing more ready. We're gonna have more videos to talk about this thing in the future coming up. But as you can see, you can spend a lot of money on these things, but it is one of the least expensive forms of off-road racing you can do. So it's a good option for a lot of guys. There were hundreds of these cars, not Hondas, but UTVs out there at the race. So it seems to be very popular. A lot of guys are liking it. So I think it's something that a lot of guys are going to look at, and we're going to follow up when we have more videos. We're going to talk about everything we do. If we see something that breaks, we're going to tell you and let you know. Hopefully we'll see you out in the track or trail soon.